Hi, I'm Mark from eReplacementParts.com. In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the tube assembly on a Toro Model 51443 string trimmer. I'll get started by removing the hand grip. It's held in place with a series of fasteners. Now I can remove the trigger. Now I can pull the switch and the plug assembly away from the hand grip. To remove the spool cap, I just simply push the tabs in on the sides of the spool. Now the spool simply lifts away from the spring. To remove the compression spring, I'll just give it a twist and pull it away from the spool. Now remove the eyelet. I'll just use a small screwdriver to pry it away from the spool. Now I can remove the string guard. It's held in place with a couple of fasteners. Now I can remove the motor housing. It's held together with a series of fasteners. The decal on top of the motor will tend to hold both sides of the motor housing together, so I'll use a knife to just slice through the decal. And now I can separate the two sides of the motor housing. Now I'll remove the motor and drum assembly. To start, I'll remove the wire nuts that secure the wires between the motor and the wiring harness. Your trimmer may have solder on the wires like this one. In that case, just cut the wire away. And now I'll just lift the motor and drum assembly away from the housing. Now I'll remove the rest of the wiring harness from the housing. Now I'll pull the wiring harness away from the tube assembly. If you haven't already done so, go ahead and remove the mid handle from the tube assembly. Now I'll reinstall the mid handle onto the tube. Now I'll thread the wiring harness through the tube assembly. Now I'll place the tube assembly back onto the motor housing. I want to make sure that I line up the notches on the tube assembly with the screw holes on the motor housing. Now replace the motor and drum assembly into the motor housing. And I'll use some wire strippers to prep the wires for reconnection. Now I'll use a pair of pliers to twist the wires back together. At this point, you can solder the wires back together if you'd like to. And now I'll just reinstall the wire nuts. Now I can go ahead and install the other half of the motor housing. But before I do, I want to take a minute and make sure I have all the wires tucked into the housing so they don't get pinched when I put the two halves of the housing together. And now I'll secure the two halves of the motor housing with the fasteners. Now I'll replace the line shield and secure it with the fasteners. Now reinstall the eyelet back onto the spool. Now reinstall the compression spring. Now reinstall the spool over the spring, lining up the line with the eyelet. Now I simply line up the tabs on the spool cap with the openings on the spool and snap the cap into place. Now I'll reinstall the wiring harness into the hand grip. First the receptacle end, and then the switch. Now I'll reinstall the trigger. I want to make sure that the tab on the end of the trigger goes on top of the switch. Now I can install the other side of the hand grip. Before I do though, I want to make sure I have all the wires tucked away so they won't get pinched between the two halves. And then I'll just secure the hand grip with the fasteners. And now you know how to replace the tube assembly yourself on your Toro Model 51443 string trimmer. We hope you found this video helpful. Please feel free to leave a comment or ask us a question.